views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
Hey there, time for the Bronx Buzz. This is the program on BronxNet Television where we talk to journalists, photographers, and in some cases community leaders, which we're going to do today, and kind of report on things going on, get inside their heads and find out what they're thinking about when they write and put out and advocate and do all those things. So this evening we're going to get started first with the editor of the Riverdale Press. It is my good friend Michael Hinman. Nice to have you with us.
Hey, thank you for having me on.
I know it's kind of a nasty day, but you figured out how to carve some time out for us, and we really appreciate that. Let's just get right into the newspaper. Now, I'm actually, you can't see me because you're on the phone, but I am holding up this week's edition. It's hard, it would be hard for anybody who reads the paper not to notice that there seems to be some dissatisfaction between, I guess, you, the editorial staff, so to speak, and Community Board 8. There's an editorial here that really, I don't want to say rips them, but criticizes them at Community Board 8 for, I guess the bottom line would be a lack of transparency. What is at issue here?
Well, I mean, you hit it pretty much on the head.
So that's it? That's the show? I said, okay, that's it. I'm joking.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, that's it. I mean, it is a transparency issue. I mean, this is, community boards, although they're advisory in nature, they do get a considerable sum of taxpayer dollars that they're responsible for spending each and every year. And part of how our government works, no matter what level you're at, is that that there is a level of transparency when it comes to how those dollars are spent, because, the people who give that money, which is us, have a right to know how that money is being used in terms of what government does. And so it's just, I mean, I don't think there's anything intentional going on, but it does seem like there's kind of a disconnect in terms of, what the community board believes should be made public and, what we believe should be made public.
Is there something that precipitated this? Is there some concern you have? You say, well, wait a minute, I know that something's being spent, or there was money that came in and then there's no transparency of how it was being allocated that precipitated this concern?
Yeah, it dated back to like last April when they had to do a kind of an emergency committee meeting over the Hebrew home of Riverdale, and what happened was that they had to get a location at the last second, and for like the first time in many years, that location actually cost them money, and it cost them the tune of $1,300, which in relative to their whole budget, that's not a lot of money. But the thing is that, it's not a big deal. Those, they actually can spend money on meeting places. CB8 has been great. Community Board 8 has been great about avoiding that whenever they can and saving money. But the problem that happened here was that there was no public disclosure of this expenditure at all. And the only time that it actually came out was 2 months later after it was leaked to me. I got an invoice leaked to me, and then I verified it, and they finally, said, oh, yeah, that did happen. And to me, that those are the kind of things that should be brought up. Those are the kind of things that should be discussed, even if the decision's already been made. The public, the people who supplied that $1,300 have a right to say, well, I don't know if I agree with that or I disagree with that or I don't care.
Or at least to know about it. But here's the question. I mean, I'm going to guess that a community board in any public entity spends some money on some things that they don't like make an announcement and say, hey, we just spent on this. They make a judgment, got to rent a bus or, get seniors from one place to another. So you say, you know what, we've got enough money in our budget to pay the $500. Should they be reporting or putting something out for every even $1,300? Not a lot of money. It's not like they spend
No, I mean, if you're doing... No, but if you're doing like usual expenses, with the things that, we have to buy office supplies or we have to do this or or we're spending $25 because one of our board members needs an Uber to get somewhere because they're having trouble. Those kind of things are very small. But this was a rather large expense that was very unusual in terms of the fact that they don't do this on a normal. It's not like they spend maybe $6,000 or $7,000 a year on space. They haven't done it in years. So
what would have been an appropriate way to do it? I mean, to send a letter to the Riverdale Press or a press release and say we spent $1,300.
The day after they signed the contract for this, there was an executive committee meeting. All the chair had to do was just mention it in passing, and I don't think anybody would have paid it any mind, to be honest. Even us, I sit at those meetings, and it would have really probably been more of a non-issue. But that's the appropriate place, probably. That was the first, kind of like an executive style meeting that happened the day after. All it had to do is be mentioned in passing.
So let's just say it was, I sit on a couple of boards in the Bronx, and the director or whoever it is, the chair, says, okay, this is my report. Let's just say in this case, Rosemary Ginty, who's the chair, just simply, I don't know, I didn't think it was that significant. Somehow I missed it. That does happen. These are volunteer people. Is that egregious?
No, if you miss it, if it was to say, hey, if when we had come up with it 2 months later, and if the chair's response to that was, I am so sorry, I had so much, so many things on my mind, that thing got overlooked. To me, that's human. We all do that. But her position was, no, I don't have to disclose it because the decision had already been made. There was nothing anybody could do about it, so no need to disclose.
Is your concern that there are other expenses like it? I mean, is there an allegation, even a silent one out there, that there's some other stuff that maybe the public should know, or is this a matter of principle?
I'm not sure I'm not sure if there are expenses. We have put in a FOIA request, a public records request, which includes financials, which we're still waiting for, by the way. That's something that should have been given to us right away because they have that accessible to them. All they do is hit a button, give it to us. But I think we're 3 weeks out now, almost 4 weeks out, and we still haven't seen those. But really what it is, a lot of it is how are people being influenced, are decisions being made outside of the public eye? Because really, debate and discussion over topics, especially those that affect the community and affect the expenditure of dollars, have to be done in the sunlight. It has to be done, in a public view, in a public meeting, and I just
or
want
at
to make
least
sure
with proper public disclosure. I mean, the public is not invited to every single thing going on. Let me move on to your editorial that's in the paper. Today is Thursday, so today is the official day that came out. As I said, I'm holding it. Seems to me one of your concerns is people who, I don't want to say leak information or who disclose information to the media, and the fact that the chair took some time to talk about it. So let's just say I'm the chair of any board, any not-for-profit board or public board, and we sit around and I say, something appeared in the paper. I don't like the idea of some people who are sitting around this table going to the media before they come to me. I think that would be a reasonable thing to say, but you seem to take issue. You seem to take issue with the chair taking the time to say those things during executive board time.
No. Actually, what the editorial reads that the issue that we take, if you see the headline, the issue that we take isn't the time taking for that. And to attack, like calling me names, and casting aspersions on me and everything else.
Yes, it wasn't pretty. Let's put it that way. Yeah.
But that's the focus of the editorial isn't that she said, hey, I would prefer you to come to me, because we would say that you should go to the chair before you come to us. You should try to rectify that. What it is an intimidation factor where she's saying, no, you need to, anybody who goes to the press without coming to me, they're cowards. Anybody who goes to the press without coming to me, they're despicable. And those are the exact words, by the way, I'm using. I mean, the exact ways that she described those. That's different from saying, hey, you should be coming to me first. Because I'd say, yeah, you're right. They should be.
So what I want to move on to one or two other things before we run out of time. What for you would be a resolve to this? What would be, because clearly now I haven't spoken to anybody, but I'm sure they're not happy with you in reading this editorial in the paper. And now you're not happy because you have some issue that you want to see resolved. What would be a good resolve for this? Maybe I can help bring the people together.
Well, I mean, for us, I mean, we haven't changed any way that we've been covering the community board. You know, the chair might think that things have changed, but I mean, we just covered the entire this NAD presentation that's happened tonight that Rosemary Ginty was a key part of.
Right.
You know, it was on the front page of the paper this week. That
I'm going to turn to it right now.
Yeah, we continue covering all these different things. To me, you know, this is an isolated, separate issue. And for me, our editorial was basically our last word on it. I don't want to have to keep going back into that. You know, if she wants to believe that it's okay to say those things to, you know, about people who are talking to me, then that's, you know, that she can say it. I did my response. To me.
Let me ask you this. If you had a sit down with either the chair or others, and they, you know, reviewed whatever questions you wanted, would it make you happier, or are you still insisting on having that FOIL request responded to?
Well, the FOIL request is going to stay active no matter what they do. I mean, that's one of those things that, I mean, journalists should be making these types, maybe not this comprehensive that I've made, but, you know, I mean, when I've covered government in the past, I would probably once a quarter submit some type of public records request, because that part of what they budget for are for requests, and they should have some type of oversight. That's part of our oversight duties. So for me, they could sit and answer all my questions. That would be awesome. But I still will require that my FOIL is completed.
I want to get to one other issue. It's actually the A1, what they call the A1 story at the top of the paper, which you had a hand in writing. The visitation school had closed, and that building over there on, what is that, West 240th Street remains empty. And there don't seem to be prospects for filling it. What a wonderful facility. You could have youth centers, you could have a religious institution, you could do anything you want in there. What are the prospects for getting that filled?
Well, this is actually, you know, for us even doing this actually came from it's something that you had moderated, a town hall from the elected officials where it was discussed. And, you know, and I think that the main goal, what the elected leaders would like to see there is a public school. But the Catholic Church still has it, and I think there's still a process they have to do for, you know, I guess if they consecrate it now, they have to deconsecrate it. I guess I'm not sure I'm Jewish. I'm not sure the proper terminology is, but you know, but there's a process that's involved with that, and I think that's probably what's slowing it down a little bit. But I think there's a lot of interest in that property.
Yeah.
It's in a key spot.
And not only is there interest, but as far as and you're right, I did moderate that town hall meeting where that subject came up. As I understand, it literally has to come out of the Vatican, the final decisions on that. And so I think it's a pretty good assumption there's a number of layers that have to go through before there's some resolve to that. Michael, I really appreciate you coming on with us. I know this, nobody likes to have kind of difficult issues, but you came front and center, and I know you have a busy day today and took your time to do it, and I appreciate it.
Always for you, Gary.
Appreciate it. All right. So we'll see you around. Travel safely in the bad weather, and there you go. That's Michael Hinman.
Thank you too, Gary. Have a happy holidays.
All right, all the best. That is Michael Hinman. Check out the Riverdale Press this week and every week, of course. When we come back, something really interesting happened at City Hall. We're going to kind of get a report from the first hand from the people who went to City Hall to advocate for school sports, and frankly, something I'm very passionate about. And you'll get a first-hand report about what went down at City Hall right after we take a break.
Sure, I look cute now, but when my owner lost his job, it was rough. I was living on the street, and one night, me and this Cocker Spaniel got into it so bad, I wound up looking like an ice cream cone. I cried a little bit, but thankfully I got rescued, so I'm running, I'm jumping, all back to my old self. And I'm ready to give unconditional love, even if you put a lampshade on my head.
It's not always easy being a dad.
Do you have panda asthma too? Does that run in the family?
This is the home of the most priceless kung fu artifacts.
But when you make an effort,
Dad, we're not supposed to touch anything.
Oh, sorry. Go along, son!
it's always worth it.
Whoa! Master!
The smallest moments can have the biggest impact on a child's life. Take time to be a dad today.
I am gonna get you. I'm gonna get you.
Call 877-4DAD-411 or visit fatherhood.gov to learn more.
You know what, guys? There's a lot of tree branches and dry brush over here. We should probably move the bonfire over there.
Guessing Smokey liked that idea.
Why don't you ever see elephants hiding in trees? Because they're really good at it. Yeah, I get it.
Back with you on the Bronx Buzz. As you might know if you've been watching the program for the past 2 years, whenever we have people who get to go somewhere, and if they're not technically journalists, we allow them to report on what happened. And I thought it was real important to bring on my friend David Garcia-Rosen. Nice to have you with us. And I know I'm going to say it wrong. And also it's Matt Diaz, who's a student from the Bronx Urban Assembly Academy of Letters.
I mean, you jumbled it up. Urban Assembly, Bronx Academy of Letters. We got the right words.
Yeah. Well, the real thing is what's on their shirts, and that's fair play. So, David, I guess we'll start with you. This is an issue we've talked about, I think, for years on my other show, on Bronx Talk. Where are we at in trying to get equitability for student athletes at your school and other schools?
Look, we're getting closer, right? I mean, we have a chancellor now, Chancellor Carranza, who is willing to speak about segregation, who's willing to speak about equity. He recently at a town hall said that this situation is totally unacceptable. What we haven't heard yet, though, is vision and solutions, and that's really what we're waiting on. But at least they're acknowledging there's a problem.
At least there's a dialogue. Maybe you should articulate, and we have some numbers, and I know they're going to put them on the screen. And Matt, we're going to bring you in and talk from your perspective of what this whole thing has been like. But what is the issue, and why? I mean, you talk about segregation. These are very strong words. Why are we talking about that when it comes to the PSAL?
Right. So I was researching it, about 8 years ago. Now the National Economic Research Association, which is the data that we're going to share here today, the Public School Athletic League is spending 14% less on Black and Latinx students compared to white students. 83 high schools have no sports teams at all in New York City.
Inconceivable to me.
I mean, people are shocked when they hear that. And even worse is Black and Latinx students are twice as likely to be at one of those high schools. So every stat you could throw out there, Black and Latinx students have less access to sports. Now, it's not acceptable that anyone goes to a high school with no sports, but to top it all off, New York City is violating civil rights and human rights law.
How did we get to this point where, I mean, because listen, did I play PSAL sports? No, I think I was the manager of one of the teams.
That counts.
I don't think, yes, I was always involved in PSAL sports. And then as my broadcast career went on, I mean, I helped do some of the broadcasting of PSAL sports, attended more high school football games than I could remember. How did we get to a point where those of us who thought the PSAL was like it, to a point where people in schools are actually complaining about it?
Right. I mean, look, originally it's the unintended consequences of the small school movement, right? You break up the big schools, you put small schools in office buildings and in elementary school buildings, and you overnight see the disappearance of interscholastic sports. Now, if the PSAL and the DOE over the past 20 years had some vision and was able to adjust and be creative, it didn't have to get to this point, because now, even when you adjust for school size, the lawsuit, that was filed in June, the data from there shows that even when adjusting for school size, Black and Latinx students have less access to sports.
We could put up some of those numbers. They've got some of the numbers. We could put those up on the screen while we're talking. The one that's up there is 52% of Black, and it's right up here on your screen, and Latinx.
Well, I think you have the other one up there now. We have the average teams. So we got so your average white student in New York City has 25 teams at their school. Your average Black or Latino student has 15, and then you have tens of thousands of kids that are at a school with almost nothing, and 17,000 Black and Latinx students in a school with no sports at all. I mean, it's just
So what you
alarming.
said was an unintended consequence of, so when they broke up the small schools, so you take Dewitt Clinton High School, my alma mater, and you've got 4 different schools in there, or the former James Monroe High School, and you've got 4 different schools. Those students are students who are not going to get to play sports in some cases.
When you're talking about Monroe and Clinton, it's a different type of problem because they continued to compete as Monroe and Clinton. Really, the schools that were most impacted were those that wound up in an elementary school building or an office building.
An old church building.
They just wound up all over. They went from 100 schools to 500 plus schools. They had nowhere to put them.
There was one other one, not this one, there was one more that I think we want to put up there. And that is, I'm looking for it. I've got it. Yeah, this one. Currently, PSAL spends 14% less on Black and Latin students compared to students of other races. And that is a consequence of splitting up the schools. And most of those schools, I guess, are in neighborhoods where there are students of color.
And they're segregated, right? UCLA said that we're the most segregated school system in the country. Carranza was just talking about it yesterday.
We've been down that road. Before I bring Matt in, and I really do want to talk to him because he's a young man who's been affected by it. What does the number 7 stand for?
Look, it's Kyle Kaepernick's number. It's kind of the intersection of sports.
Mickey Mantle.
No, it's it's the intersection of sports and activism, and that's why the students pick this number to put on our fair play jerseys.
Got it. Matt Diaz, thank you very much for joining us. You are a senior.
Yes, I'm a senior.
At the school. Pretend the guy is not sitting next to you to the right. Some people would say that if the teacher has an issue and he brings the students around, he's using the students to promote what may or may not be a fair agenda, but his agenda. What are your thoughts about you being part of this movement and having maybe a leader like Mr. Rosen saying, hey, go talk about this? That's a tough question, I know. It's my nature to ask that.
Well, first I want to thank you for inviting us, and also David has always been an activist, but he's been an activist in sports equity for a long time, and I also was an activist in a different spectrum, was segregation. I'm an activist in my school, which is for Integra NYC, which is an organization that's youth-led that fights against school segregation. That's a whole different spiel. But I am blessed to be in this opportunity because what David does is let the students be in the forefront of the movement and just do the work. So basically yesterday or 2 days ago, I met with 10 different council members to get people to sign on to this bill that we've been advocating for sports equity. And those people that were meeting were students. I gathered students from all over the city, from Staten Island, from every single borough, to basically meet with council members to have one-to-one conversations with students that really face the issue.
I'm going to answer my own question with the good part of it. Imagine taking New York City high school students and giving them the quote-unquote opportunity to advocate for themselves in front of city council members. That must have been a great for a growth experience. But before we even get to the issue, must have been a great experience for you.
It was a great experience. It was a civics class for me that day. I really saw what politics was really what it was like in firsthand experience, and I just got to see amazing people come together.
When you sat down and when we met earlier this afternoon, I asked you, what sport do you play? And you came right out and said you play volleyball. So I was like, my first reaction for any New York City high school kid would be, oh, so how's the team? There's no team at your school.
No, there's no team for volleyball in our school. And the bad part is that we applied for volleyball and we didn't get accepted to have that volleyball in our school.
If you have a school that has maybe, I don't know, some of the schools have 150 students, 250 students, it becomes difficult to field all those teams, a volleyball team, a baseball team, a softball team, soccer teams, whatever. How do you deal with that? And if you say, hey, we want the teams, they say, okay, we'll give you the funding. But you say, I only got 5 kids that show up. How do you put a team together?
Well, if I put in my perspective right now, there was many students in our school that wanted to have volleyball. And so we still got denied as well. So
even if you got a dozen students, you think it would be worthwhile? Then they could have what do they have? A PSAL A, B. They could even have a C league for smaller schools.
They do. and we still get
They
denied.
already have it, and you don't get to play in it?
Yes.
Oh my goodness gracious!
And if I could just
That's
jump,
it. I'm out.
if I could jump
Doesn't
in here
make
too,
any sense
we
to
have
me.
a solution, right? I mean, we've presented the deal with the solution. You take the small schools, you put them in together into one umbrella program, and then you can offer all those teams.
Because you can even have, let's say, the ones from the Mott Haven section of the Bronx, or
Exactly.
from Claremont.
That's
or
the
from-
solution.
And you could create
That's
a
the
football
solution.
team.
That's
You
the
could create
solution.
these sports that everybody wants to play.
Here's the easiest question of the day. What would be the value for you and your classmates if you did have the sports? I mean, I know you like to play them, and this is, to me, it's just so obvious, but I'd love for you to articulate what would be the value of having those teams?
I think when I grew up in Bronx Academy of Letters, I feel like I was connected to this community because I've seen so many people of my color and my culture. But I think something that would have helped enabled me to connect more with people and have personal connections is these sports teams. And also, I feel like without sports, I wouldn't be as confident as I am today, or I won't
Well,
have
you're
the
doing pretty
leadership.
well. He's doing okay.
I
I'm not worried about you, frankly. It's some others maybe, but I'm not worried about you.
I won't have the leadership that I have
I'm
today,
going to
but-
add one more thing, and maybe David Garcia-Rosen can add in. You know, the opportunities for college, think about what you're going to go through to apply to college, to get into college. If you were a star athlete, and every athlete doesn't get, but there are opportunities for education. You may get to visit a college, even if you don't go there because they want to see what you're like or you get to see them. That's education in itself, an incredibly valuable education. So I've answered my own question. I don't even need them. I could do this whole thing. Because, David, you know I'm so passionate about it. People like Matt and certainly young women need it because they, you know, the guys get it because they hang out in the park and play ball anyway. But young women don't always do that, and they need that opportunity and the benefits that athletics can bring. So let's wrap it up. Where are we at? What is next? Is there anything the public can do? Because, again, I'm sorry. I'm editorializing. I think this is so important.
Yeah, and I'm with you. And you said we've been talking about it for years. And
We have. I looked it up.
Yeah.
You've been on my show since 2015.
One of our young leaders, Lisa Parks, said something that really hit me hard yesterday. She said, I shouldn't have to be fighting for sports. I should be playing sports. And I'm like, we're schlepping kids all over the city to council members. Like when I was their age, I was playing sports. These guys are fighting for sports. It's crazy.
We're now, people may not know, we taped the show late on a weekday afternoon. He really should be on the volleyball court.
Yes.
Get out of here.
Yeah, it's really, it hit me in the heart. I was like, this has to stop. We need the chancellor, we need the mayor to take bold action
Did you
and
get
fix it.
good, we're about to wrap up. Did you get good reactions?
You tell me. You were leading these meetings. Good reactions from the council members.
Yes, so we needed majority in order to this bill
I guess
continue.
it's more than 51, so you need 26.
Exactly.
Yes, 26. So we have
I
27
did
now,
pass
actually.
math. Oh, okay.
We have
So you
27
think there
now.
are people who are ready to support it? Do you know when it might come up? And we got to get out of here.
27 council members support. I mean, 2019. I think it looks like it's
It'll
going to
come
move.
up.
It's moving, but that's not going to solve it. That's just going to pressure the DOE. We need the DOE to solve it.
I want to be invited to the first Urban Academy of Letters volleyball game.
You got it.
Volleyball match, excuse me. David Garcia-Rosen, thank you for fighting. Matt Diaz, I will get behind you online anytime.
Thanks.
How about that?
Perfect.
Okay, folks, that is it. We're done for the Bronx Buzz for this evening, and so I will see you on Monday night for Bronx Talk. Another a program about schools. We're going to bring on the Green Bronx Machine and how they are changing the way young people eat and what their view of health is in the borough of the Bronx and actually throughout the nation. So that's it. We got to go. Good night.